Welcome to the Exit Ready podcast. Ryan Ray here as always. Today you're going to love the episode. Be sure to never miss what's going on with the Exit Ready Cohort Intensive by going to www.rgahub.com/exitready. That's rgahub.com/exitready. I'll put a link to this in the description below so you can check it out. But if you're an owner, you're not going to want to miss this. Now, let's get to the show. Well, David, it is nice to meet you. I just saw you on X the other day, and I was like, I would love to talk to this guy. And we got to talk offline here briefly, get to know each other a little bit, but it's been a pleasure. So thank you so much for your time. How are you doing?
Yeah, no, thanks for having me and reaching out. And it's always nice to meet people and get to, see them when we meet online. And so it's nice to be here. I'm doing well, just kind of closing out 2025 and prepping for 2026, man. So,
I don't know about you. I am pumped about 2026. I just tweeted about this a minute ago. Like, I am really excited. I was telling my wife this the other day. I'm 40, as I've said before, so people know I'm 40. I don't think people appreciate, it is hard to have a business. I'm not saying that that's easy. That's tough. But the amount of access to materials to learn about how best strategies for this. I was watching a video earlier about short form content and how to use that and management. There's all kinds of tools out there that were much harder to access when I was 22, 23, 24. And so I am really pumped for 2026. And I don't know, maybe is
yeah.
that just me? Is that just me in Texas going, yay, it's terrible everywhere else, or what's going on?
No, it's true. I mean, even just 10 years ago when I started my
Mhm.
business buying journey, it just feels like, gosh, I probably would be way further along today had I had these tools at my fingertips, and a lot of these tools today aren't even behind a paywall,
Yeah,
right? I
yeah.
mean, like, it's just all kinds of free content, people like yourself with channels and, just putting stuff out. And then now with the advent of AI on top
hmm
of that, it's just, man, not just 2026, but it's almost like the next 5 years.
Yeah,
I'm excited to see what is in store and how things are going to change
yeah,
because of technology and the access that we have to information.
yeah. And
So,
I don't want to get on a whole diatribe here, but I'll see people talk about the economy going bad, and I get that the economy goes bad and it goes good. And I didn't live through the Great Depression. I'm 40, so I'm not that old.
right.
But I have lived through some downturns, lived through COVID, obviously. And
Yep.
I've seen the economy shut down, but I've also seen that during all those times, people persevered, they made money. Not everyone did. Some people got bad spots.
Yep. Yep.
But I would say that today, without doubt, whatever comes in the future, you're in the best spot ever to figure out how to navigate those than you were before. So a lot of the doom and gloom, which might be coming, might be true, forgets that
Yeah.
it is easier than ever before to figure out how to manipulate yourself and how to, not say manipulate in a bad way, but how to maneuver yourself maybe through these turbulent waters. Because, when COVID was going on in 2020, I was working for, the company that I owned then was big enterprise clients and long sales cycles, and it was tied to oil and gas. And so how do you can't, that's really tough, but I
Right.
don't do that anymore. And so now I'm really excited. And I get if you're in that space, you have to deal with some of that stuff. But even there, how do you find clients? And how do we used to have to find clients? It was so hard. And so I'm really pumped about the next 3, 5, 10, 20 years. I'm really thinking, okay, this is the golden age, and I hope I'm right because I'm 40 and I need a good 20-year run would be great for me.
Right.
So
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
mentioned
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
mentioned 10 years ago you started buying companies. So how many companies do you currently have? How's that journey gone as far as like sourcing, finding them? Are they all local to you? Give me kind of the background here
Mhm.
of your journey.
Yeah. So, a lot of the businesses that I've purchased, I've, bought them and then merged them. And most of the time I kept the brand name. I'm really big on, buying good, solid businesses that have been around forever. And when you do that, if you merge and get rid of the brand name, I just feel like you're shooting yourself in the foot. I mean, the websites that I have from the businesses I've purchased are all 20 years old, right? I mean, like the value that has when you talk about SEO and so forth is great. And so at this point, I've I've purchased 10 companies. There were couple small ones early on that didn't really have brand recognition, so I was able to kind of merge those clients and inventories and so forth in. And then at this point, I've sold one of my companies, so I've got 8 now that I own, and then I've helped at this point multiple people buy their own small business. So you know, it's such an interesting space because you were talking about the access to information and just the way that things are going. I mean, I started 2 companies in my early 20s when I was 21, and I got a few clients, but really didn't take off. I started another company with another buddy of mine doing like Amazon FBA stuff. If we would have had the resources that we have today, I don't know. I may not have ever bought a business, because we could have just kept rolling with that. But we didn't, and we were young and dumb and didn't know what we didn't know, and it just didn't wind up gaining any traction. And so I pivoted unknowingly to me at that time into business buying. There was a guy that was going to shut down his business. And I was in Greensboro, North Carolina, where I'm from, which is kind of like middle of the state. And the business that the guy was shutting down was at the beach about 4 hours away. And so I just said, hey, listen, don't shut that business down. It's growing, it's going well. I'll take it over and I'll buy it from you. And so I just moved. And at that time I was, 25, 26 years old, no wife, no children. And so I took off and moved. And then in that little beach town is where I just started buying competitor year after year in my local, town. It's not even a city. Um, the town is called Sunset Beach, and there are around 3,000 residents in Sunset Beach, North Carolina. It's largely a vacation town because it's on the beach, and so all of the businesses were kind of in the vacation space, in hospitality. And I just started buying one competitor after another and really figured out that I enjoy the buying process more than I do the growth process. Even though we're growing at a big clip, I just, when you find something you enjoy, it's like injecting it into your veins. It's like you just can't stop, and you just, there's this joy that's associated um, with it. And so I was like, okay, well, I've bought a bunch of businesses kind of in this vertical. What would it look like to buy a business that I don't know anything about? Because that's the kind of punishment that I enjoy, right? And uh, so a buddy of mine at the time was a contractor, and we found this business uh, building custom log cabins. And I was like, look, man, we should buy this business together. And it's on the other side of the state. So, in the mountains. North Carolina has the beach and the mountains. That's why it's one of the greatest states in the union. But, anyways, so it was in the mountains. And he was like, well, I'll move. I'll go over and run it. And then you can handle sales from, and marketing and brand recognition and all that from there. And so, so we did that. And then 2 months before close, this was kind of around COVID. 2 months before we closed, unfortunately, my business partner actually passed away. Um, and so just tragic circumstances, but at that point, we have everything ready and lined up to close, and so it kind of forced me out of the owner operator seat and into the just business owner seat, because my wife and we prayed about it, and I want my yes to be a yes. And so even though contractually I could have gotten out of it due to unforeseen circumstances and so forth, I just, you know, I felt like as a business owner myself, what would happen if that was me in that situation? I probably would. I've probably got plans for the money. I mean, this was an older gentleman. He's retiring, right? And he's probably turned away countless people that have pursued other opportunities. And so we wound up doing that. My wife was 9 months pregnant. We bought a house sight unseen. We moved after my son was born. So he was about 3 weeks old. So with a newborn and a toddler, we moved across the state. And then for about 2 years, we lived 2 weeks in that town and then 2 weeks at the beach. So we just packed up every 2 weeks and went back and forth to run the new construction company, which, mind you, I don't know anything about construction, right? Like you wouldn't want me building your dog a house, much less a custom log cabin. And so I wound up having to retain the seller for far too long. And just honestly, there was nothing wrong with the business. The only reason I sold is because I was driving my wife crazy with this back and the forth. Because at this time, I bought another business at the beach and we had another child. And so we had a baby and two toddlers going back and forth. I've got businesses out my ears now, working on having children out of my ears, and so it was too much. So we wound up selling the construction company and kind of going back to the beach where I've bought two more companies, and so just kind of doing all of that. So at this point, all of the businesses that I've purchased are within driving distance. You know,
And
yeah.
what size is your buy box?
So everything was largely under $1 million.
Under $1 million.
Yep.
Okay.
So everything that I was buying was under $1 million because I did everything pretty much myself,
Mm,
except for the last two businesses that I bought was my attempt at starting a fund,
mm,
and but we wound up not needing any money. So the bank loaned us all the money. So we wound up not needing to really raise any money, and we bought these two businesses, and they were still sub $1 million purchase price.
mm.
And that was 2 years ago, and actually we're under contract, and next month we're selling those businesses. But there was five of us. We put no money down, and once it's all said and done, we will have returned about $500,000 in cash to the partners.
Nice.
So it was a pretty good deal. But that was my first time taking on a partner, and which kind of leads me to 2026. What I'm doing is putting together a holding company to
Mm,
go out and buy businesses kind of at that next level, that 10 to 20 million dollar mark,
mm.
because I realized that the due diligence process on $1 million business is the same on a $10 million business.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we're gonna go and raise some money and go and do it at the next clip.
Yeah. And so at that $1 million, sub $1 million range, what are some of the things that you would advise owners? There's, like, hey, if you're going to sell and you're sub $1 million, obviously, 10, 15, 20, $100 million, it's all different levels. But for that type of owner, which there's tons of those guys out there, what are
Oh
some of the
yeah.
things that they should have done? Not the people that you bought from, but that you've seen that like, hey, man, this could have made the transition easier, could have made it a little bit more valuable, could have gotten you paid more cash up front, lower earnout. Or maybe you had to stay on as long as you mentioned. What are some of the things you've seen from that regard? Hey, quick break here. If you're an owner, do you know that most companies will never actually sell? That means that all those years that you put into building your business are for nothing. If you want to build a business that's valuable, that people will want to buy, and you can make potentially millions of dollars from, go to rjhub.com or click in the link below. That's rjhub.com or click on the link below. And now back to the episode.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, the stats are actually that 80% of businesses don't sell. So really and truly, a lot of these people who are in that position right now are not going to be able to sell their business, and it's largely because of two main things. One, they want too much money. They've overvalued their asset, their business, and then two, they themselves are too involved in the business. It's too dependent on the owner, and so largely they want too much money because they think it's worth, so that this is their blood, sweat, and tears, their life's work. And it's kind of a hard thing when you start trying to put a number on your life's work. It's a pretty emotional process, to kind of consider. And I think that's one of the reasons why I've been successful and able to be able to buy the amount of businesses I have, is just being able to speak to that reality with the seller, and really, it's not just about the numbers. It's not just about the X's and O's. I mean, there's this piece of humanity that's tied to, and very emotional process. And so a lot of the corporate guys that I talk to and do coaching with, they come in and this is just another transaction to them. Like they're a corporate guy, and so it just rubs sellers the wrong way, and they don't get a deal done. And but to your question, about sellers, one, we got to be realistic about what your business is worth. And a lot of times, the people that you go to do business valuations, they're not buyers. Okay, it's one thing for me to tell you what your business is worth. It's another thing for me to write you a check. And a lot of the times, the people that are telling you what it's worth, whether that be a broker or an independent valuator, it's not real. It's really, really highly inflated. And so that's one thing. We need to recognize what the value of the business is, and those are based on a whole number of factors inside of every industry. But then the second thing is owner dependency. If you have a business that's, say, $700,000 is the value of the business, that means you're probably bringing in $150, $100 to $200,000 in SDE, let's say. Well, by the time I come in as a buyer and I put money down and I get a loan, I go to service debt, if I have to retain you or anybody else, there's no money. That's not profitable. It just now the whole equation doesn't make any sense. But the seller has built the business in such a way that it depends on them, largely because that's just what they've done. And their kids are out of the house and they don't really have anything else to do, and so that keeps them busy and keeps them going. But it also is going to shoot them in the foot because nobody wants a job. I mean, nobody wants to come in and buy $100,000 job.
Not for
and it's
seven
not
hundred
even gonna,
thousand dollars.
right. Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's
not for
like,
700 to get 100. Like, wait, no, I don't. No, I'm good.
and it's not even 100 because it's going to be
Right,
less than that after debt service. So it's like, I'm going to quit
right.
my job and go do this, and I'm going to put a large chunk of money down to work 60 hours a week to make 50 grand. Like the
Hmm.
equation just doesn't work, man.
Yeah,
And so the sellers right now, if you're considering and thinking about doing planning and retirement, one, you need to focus on growing the business. And that's not just through cost reduction. That's
mm,
not trying to squeeze every penny out of your business, because the new buyer that comes in, like when I come in and I see that the seller has basically starved operations for the last two
right.
years to milk every penny out of it so that he can show growth on paper. Okay, next. Like, it still may be worth $700,000, but I don't want it, because I know in order for me to go from 700,000 in revenue, or just, I'm throwing out numbers, to 1.5 million, 2 million, the amount of money I'm going to have to put in, and because all these costs have been slashed, and people and so forth, it's not that you couldn't get that number. Maybe now it's not the number. It's just you've eliminated your pool of buyers because of the way that you've set your business up.
Yeah. Well, and one thing there, I've advised sellers to do, anything sub 5 million is just go talk to an SBA broker and have the SBA value the business, because most buyers in this range are going to go SBA anyways, And so you got to know
Yep.
what the SBA will lend on the business. And then it doesn't mean the buyer will pay that, to your point, but if you think it's worth, 3 and the SBA goes it's worth 750, good luck selling that story. You're going to have an uphill battle. And again, it doesn't mean
Right.
that if it says 750 and you're happy with 750, the buyer will pay 750, but you at least got to know what the bank will lend on it, because very few buyers are going to come in with cash. And then you brought up something interesting earlier about the corporate mentality. And I've talked to a few buyers like this, and they come in and they're like, well, what is the EBITDA of the sellers that you talk to and all this stuff? I'm like, bro, you know how many sellers know their EBITDA? Do you know how many actually know that word means? What are you talking about? You have no
Yeah.
idea how this world works. Go talk to
Yeah.
a 50 million. We had a deal one time. The company was doing 50 million in revenue, and they said their EBITDA was 5. We're like, okay, they $50 million company. They were wrong. It was like 8 or 10. I can't remember what it was. They were way off. And so
Right.
I did talk to a NASDAQ company one time, and they knew their EBITDA. But I
Okay.
think I've talked to like 3 companies or 4 out of like 350 owners that had any concept of EBITDA or what it was. And so,
Right.
the corporate buyer types is like, if you're going for these companies that are $1 million in revenue or $1 million in value or less, you're barking up the wrong tree. Like, you have no concept of what's going on here. I always say talk redneck to redneck. I'm a redneck.
Right.
It works for me,
Yeah.
and it works for the NASDAQ guy, and it works for the guy. It just works, because if you come
Right.
in with your big MBA and I'm really smart, they don't want to hear that. This is their baby.
Yeah.
This is their
Yeah.
love child. This is what they're trying to sell for top dollar. And you're like, give me your
Right.
EBITDA and your investment. No. That's just not going to happen. So, go ahead.
Yeah, it's not going to work, and that's why I think the statistic is that like 4% of people that set out to buy a business actually do.
Yeah.
And
Well,
you know,
on that, real quick, I do think it's cool to tell your friends, I'm looking to buy a business, but you're really not serious. I do think that is a whole thing, that there's a whole
Yeah.
culture of buyers. There's dudes I've seen on Twitter for years now that are buying a business or trying to buy a
Searching.
business, and searchers, and it's like, if you were really searching, you could have found a deal by now. It's
could
not
have.
easy. It's not easy, but it's doable.
Yep. It's doable, but I will say I think it's also a little bit of a grace that they don't buy the business.
Yes.
Because I actually think that most people shouldn't.
Yeah.
I don't. I just think that it's especially difficult to go from the corporate world to Main Street. Okay,
Yeah.
because it's just it's just very difficult to go from your corporate job, which is largely very cushy. And I'm not saying that they, aren't, it's not hard work, but usually you're on a much bigger team. You're very focused in one,
Yeah.
pretty much one direction. You have a huge amount of resources at your fingertips that's provided to you by your large corporation. And none of that exists in Main Street. None of that exists. You don't have the luxury to focus on one thing on any day. I mean, you have to spend 10 different plates every single day. I mean, you're like a circus act, a walking circus act, and you're going to put in more hours than you do at your corporate job, and you're going to have less resources, less access, and nobody really cares. Like in corporate, there's your resume and your LinkedIn and like your upward mobility and your track and just like all the different opportunities. Main Street could care less about any of that stuff.
Yeah.
And so I just don't think most people should buy businesses. I mean, frankly.
And I think that I always say this, and I'm never being disparaging. I'm a capitalist. You can sell for whatever, for how much you want to pay for. I don't care about that.
Yeah, it's
but I
worth
think
what
to your
someone will
point-
pay for it.
Yeah, I think to your point earlier, though, a lot of owners think that they're selling a Ruth Chris steak and they're selling a McDonald's dollar burger. And they don't understand that difference and the types of buyers that you're trying to attract. And there's good people at each rung and bad people at each rung, but there's good people. It doesn't mean that it's bad people. It's just you got to understand, if you're buying all sub-$1 million companies, that's a certain type of buyer, certain type of mentality. You got to be willing to drive across the state and all that. You got to have that mentality. That's what you got to do. And a lot of buyers, though, they're like, well, I'm going to sell for $7 million, and it's like, no. Your company's not worth that. It doesn't mean it can't be. It doesn't mean you can't do some things to help it get there, depending on how much time and all that stuff you want to get into. But a
Right.
lot of owners come into this going, well, I spent 20, 30, 40 years doing this thing, and it's got to be worth a lot. And I've heard from so many owners, well, the company does this much revenue, but, we're in DFW, and there's 6 million people here, so we could have all the business we wanted. I'm like, do you? Do you right
Yeah.
now?
Right.
Then what are you
Yeah.
selling? Like, I know you
Yeah.
could, but you
Right.
don't. And
Yeah.
now if you have 10% of the market share of DFW, you got a business. You got
Right.
that's
A
something.
behemoth.
Yeah, you got a
Yeah.
behemoth. And then if you say
Right.
we've got 10% and the market cap is 6 million, and it's like, oh well, you can't get all 6 million, but I see what you're saying. If you're making
Right.
$1 million a year, you're like, well, 6 million people. Like, no one's buying that story. And I think so many owners.
Yeah.
The trouble is, as I see it right now in the M&A space, is it's better than it's ever been. The education is more geared towards the buyers. And so they're being very sophisticated. You mentioned these corporate types that are coming down. They're paying for these MBA programs or these buying programs. I'm not against that stuff.
Yeah.
But they're very
Right.
sophisticated. The owners don't understand how to level up their game so that they can, even if it's going from 750 to 850, that's $100K.
Yep.
That's money. Or 750 to 1.5. And that's something that you can do if you understand how to do it. Maybe you don't want to do it. And so owners don't really understand that. The buyers do. And so the buyers come in, maybe it's worth 950, but from some
Yeah.
smooth talking, pushing back on ad backs, like, now it's 750. And so I think a lot of owners right now, they want the 7 million, it's worth 3, but they don't realize that they're actually getting whittled down to like 2.5 or 2.2 because they don't even understand how this game is played.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right, and that's where it's unfortunate that on multiple different fronts, like on the buyer front and on the seller front. But for the seller, he's this is largely going to be his nest egg for retirement, and so he's got to sell for as much as humanly possible to really try and bolster his retirement and his earnings. And most people don't really have much of an exit plan, and so then exit a lot of times get forced on sellers through unfortunate circumstances or health or so forth. And so then when reality comes and they think it's worth all of this money, and the offer comes in at half, it's just really sobering, and that's why it's just really important to do consulting, which is why I'm doing consulting for sellers, and not just sellers but business owners in general, to be transition ready, right? I mean, whether you want to transition the business from 750 to 1.5 million, or you want to transition the business to your grandson, or you want to transition it just to retire, there's virtually no business on Main Street has this 3-year plan, to do that. And so they get hit in the face with reality, and it's really harsh, and it affects a lot of different things for the seller. It affects how long they have to keep working for the new buyer. It affects their lifestyle post retirement because they're earning the most they're ever going to make right now with that business. And so it's just really important that they take some steps to get ready for their business to be transition ready today. Whether they have any intention on selling in the next year or 3 years, their business needs to be transition ready. And to your earlier point, or question to begin with, was how to do that and how to prep sellers. Is the business has to depend less on you. I mean, that's just all there is to it. Whether it's 500,000 or 5 million, the business. I mean, my stepfather, he sold a business, and he worked 80, 100-hour weeks, and he probably could have gotten more if it didn't depend on him as much. And so
I
the
talked,
business being transition ready is huge.
yeah, I talked to an owner of a 30 million a year revenue company, and he told me, he said about selling, maybe to his sons, but probably externally. And he goes, well, if I go away, this thing shuts down. I'm like, well, what is someone going to pay for? What are your sons? I mean,
Right.
like, why would you sell it to your sons? Like, you're just,
Right.
if you go away, because all the contacts, all the clients, they all came to him. And so it's
Yep.
like, yeah, yeah, you gotta stop that because even if your sons
Yeah.
buy it and then you die or get
Right.
disabled or something like that happens, because you might
Yep.
plan to stay on for 3 to 5 years, but that might not like that's not worth anything. I mean, it's
Yeah.
worth okay. I say anything. It's not worth a lot
Yeah. Yeah.
to a prospective
Right.
buyer because they're gonna go, wait, how do I know you're gonna pick up the phone? How do I, you're
Yeah.
not gonna badmouth me? How do I know all this stuff?
Yeah.
The risk is huge, and so many
Yeah.
owners need to really adopt not what they think it's worth. What would you risk? What would you risk? Would you
Right.
risk $2 million
Yeah.
to buy something and all the circumstances are the same? If so, then go do it. Just go do it with someone else because those it's like, no, I don't want to do that. It's like, right. So why are you asking someone to risk $2 million for your thing? How do you
Right.
de-risk this as much as possible, as much as you humanly can?
Yeah.
And I like the term exit ready. So transition ready. I don't like exit planning because people think about, planning is like,
Yeah.
no, I like ready. I love the term ready. So I say exit ready, transition ready,
Yeah.
however you want to phrase it. I think that's the right, that's a mentality, right? You always want to
Right.
have this readiness about you because to your point, I've talked to owners whose wife got cancer. 100-year-old
Yeah.
business or 80-year-old business and the wife got cancer. It's like third, fourth generation and he was going to sell and then it wasn't really set up. And so now I can't. No, I got to take care of the wife in terrible situations. She got cancer and
Yeah.
so it is harder if you're doing $1 million a year in revenue to be exit ready. But
Yep.
I think you touched on something important there. If you're going to have a company, you need to make a determination at some point. Is this a lifestyle business or one that I am going to exit? You're going to exit whether you die or you close your doors. Like you're exiting. Like that ain't
Right.
that's gonna happen.
We're all
The
exiting
yeah,
stage left at some
yes.
point, right?
The exit the exit is guaranteed. The exit's guaranteed. But if you're going to do a lifestyle business, then understand to set your finances up in a way for that. But don't go
Right.
lifestyle and then when you're 67 say I want to sell this thing and it's not worth anything and you go wait I need that money like then it might be too late
Yeah.
to build out something that you
Yeah.
can sell. And if you're going to
Yep.
sell, get that mentality to sell and build out the strongest company that you can because the strongest company is obviously the most valuable, but also you're going to enjoy the most, right? Because now your owner
Right.
dependency goes down, your customer concentration goes up. All those things are so important. Those start to
Yep.
change. Then you might not want to exit because you're making good money and enjoying it more. You might
Right.
push it out a little bit
Yeah.
further. And so
Exactly.
it's kind of
Yeah.
counterintuitive, it seems like.
Yeah, yeah, and see that's the thing is, and that's why a lot of times people who, I know everybody uses the term exit. The reason I just don't like the term exit is because that's usually not how people who've had the business for 25 years, they don't think about, okay, I'm going to exit. No, they think, well, no, I'm going to sell, I'm going to retire. Exit is usually one of those terms for investors like, yeah, we're going to exit this position. It's like, it's just more, I don't know what the word is, but that's why I like the word transition because it can mean anything. But the process, if that transition means selling to a third party, the transition process has to take place multiple years before, because that's the other thing that I see is, again, hypothetical scenario, $1 million in revenue, $1 million in revenue. They got it in their mind they want to sell. So the next year, $2 million in revenue. And now I want to sell it. Well, that's great. But the problem is that your trailing 36 months have two $1 million revenue years. And so again, if we're talking about max value, it just has to be a more than a 6 or 8 month time frame. I mean,
And
so we've got to
yeah.
plan.
And if you couple that with that extra revenue is from like one or two customers, then it's like, oh, that's really risky. And it's
Right.
not recurring. It's just one-off projects. And I don't think owners think about that. Like, oh, the numbers are this. Like, well, how do those numbers come about? Are they coming back?
Right.
Wait, the customer concentration is you had 10 clients and now you've got 12, but that 12 made the extra million up. Wait, hold on. And there's no
Yeah.
contract for them to come back. So what am I buying?
Yep.
I'm buying $1 million, really. I'm not buying. And then the million, I got 10 customers. Like, and it's like
Yeah.
I get the value of what you've created for you. It's been great blessing for you and your family, but for the new owner, again, you're asking for that check, and that check is a high stakes check. And so,
Yeah.
would you write the check for someone else's business like this? And I worked with an owner one time, and he owned a business, and he wanted to buy. And so we went to market and looked, and he decided nothing that we brought to him he wanted to buy because his company was netting more than like 2 million a year. He's cashing in 2 million a year. Great
Yeah.
business. And he goes, I can't find anything that I would pay for and net this kind of money. And so why would I write a bigger check? Well, like I'd have to write a huge
Yeah.
check to get this. Like why'd I do that?
Right.
And I
Right.
got it. Like once he tested the market, he realized as far as cashing checks in his business, what he had was really good. And then the risk it would take to go buy something was more than he wanted to risk. And that kind of helped him understand how to see
Right.
this. And now he is going to exit his company. And so he understands kind of the mentality of that and the risk. And his company has some issues on the risk side as well that he's got to work through. So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah.
But yeah, if owners don't kind of test that market, just understand what's going on. And I talked to a guy one time. I said, well, if you can net $2 million, would you pay 500,000 for it? And he goes, yeah. I said, okay, write me a check for 500,000 right now. I'll show you how to do it. He goes, well, I don't know about that. I'm like, no. You just, I can tell you. Like, it's actually not. It's oddly enough, it's not hard. I can tell you how to do it. He goes, well, I'm not sure it's
Right.
guaranteed. I'm like, well, nothing's guaranteed. You could die. I could die.
Right.
But I can tell you.
Yeah.
And the psychology of when you put money to it, you actually write the check, it changes everything. To your point about the valuation,
Yeah.
oh, someone could value the business for this, but I'm writing the check. That carries more
Right.
weight.
And I promise you, it's going to be a different number. I promise you. What that business valuator, broker, whomever gave you the number, the person writing the check. It's very rare have I seen those two numbers be the same. It's usually lesser than, and that's really there's so much cognitive dissonance between sellers and buyers and just the whole process. But that's what capitalism is there's
Yeah.
trying to find the market and giving away more than you want and on either side of the equation. But that's really what it's about, is trying to help buyers, trying to help sellers come to an agreement and pay a value that they both think is a value,
Right.
right? And that's where it's difficult. And I think we're the way the economy is right now, it seems like everything's shifting to a buyer's market.
Mm-hmm.
Money's getting cheaper to borrow, but at the same time, I think that revenues and obviously it just ranges from industry, right? But I think revenues are not growing as quickly, as fast, with the same amount of inputs as maybe they once were. And so I think multiples are probably going to, come down. But I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about that. But I just think that it's going to be kind of a buyer's market in the next year.
Yeah, I think, yeah, that's possibly true. But I also think that a buyer is going to try to find the best deal for them. And when I say that, you think instantly the cheapest, but that's not always true. Some buyers want really strong companies and they will pay a top dollar for that because for them,
Right.
that's the best deal because it increases the likelihood they're going to earn their money back. And so they would rather
Yep.
pay more for that because the risk is lower in their mind. Some buyers,
Yep.
they don't want
Yep.
that. They want to risk the less money up front, and so they'll buy something with
Right.
more hair on it. And so as an owner, understanding what kind of a buyer you're trying to attract will help you understand how to position your company. So if you're like, yeah, I want to run this thing until I'm ready to retire and I'm going to sell for whatever, okay, you're going to find all kinds of people that will buy that. But the best deal
Right.
for them is probably going to be less cash. Like they're not going to pay as much. If you build a
Yep.
premium thing, you're going to put those buyers away. Nothing wrong with those people, but then you're going to attract the premium buyers because they will pay more. Because even in a down economy, actually, I mean, I got a story of a company that I won't get to right now, but how they position themselves. But if you're a strong company, you can earn top dollar even if the multiples come down or top dollars in that market because some companies they view the risk as buying a better company, paying more is less risk than buying a company with more hair on it. And I think owners don't really understand that dichotomy there, like how to position themselves. And there's no right or wrong answer. It's just you got to understand what you're trying to do.
You got to be self-aware, right?
Yeah,
To your
yeah,
point, you got to really know what it is that you're selling. And but a lot of times, unfortunately, they kind of make that determination too late. And so the sooner that you can get with, an advisor, the better it is for everybody. To be able to really identify who you are and what you're doing, and then make plans accordingly. Whether you're Ruth's Chris or McDonald's, like your analogy.
Yeah, I
And
eat. I'm fat. I eat both. I don't care. I'm not.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
about expectations. If
Yes.
I just don't want to go to Ruth's Chris with that
Yes.
expectation and get McDonald's
Yes.
quality. It's just about
Yes.
expectation. I'll eat both. It doesn't matter. But I'm not going to go to McDonald's and expect a Ruth's Chris,
Yes.
quality.
I won't be disappointed if I get it, but I'm not expecting it. Yes.
Not
Yes.
expecting it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep. And so that's what it is. And you have to kind of know that. And, sellers, a lot of times they want to talk about pro forma. They don't use that term.
Oh, yeah.
They're like, what it could be. Like you said,
Yeah.
a DFW. Well, look at DFW. It's like, well, we're buying historicals, right? We're not buying, hope is not a strategy, right? We're not
Yeah.
buying about what it could be. All that's upside for the buyer. And far too many times, seller wants to look at the possibilities as a selling point, and they just got to understand that possibilities, like you said, it's just rare that possibilities are actually a selling point. you know,
Unless you're so big, you're probably not watching this, because then,
right? Yeah,
if you're
yeah,
McDonald's and you tell some firm to buy you, yes, we could increase our stores, but yes, because you are McDonald's, you have that kind of market share. But yeah, for me and you, we don't have that.
yeah. So that's just seller's mentality about pro formas. I was saying about in the Sims or CBRs, I don't understand. I don't even look at the numbers. And I don't understand why they put them in there of hey, what the business could do, and here are the projections, and most of the time those are just largely a waste of time, lots
Yeah.
a waste of space. When I'm evaluating whether to buy this business or not, the 2026 projections, I mean, pretty useless. I
Yeah.
mean,
I'm
and
projected to
so
make $1 billion this year, just so you know. I'm so excited about
right.
2026.
Hey,
It's $1 billion. So
yeah, I self-identify as a billionaire. Okay, so
Yes, exactly.
oh,
Exactly. Well, let me say this. If you're
yeah,
watching, David got kicked out. We're not sure what happened. He recut that. So if it's a funky edit there, that is what happened. Thank you for hopping back in. And I know we're over time, so I don't want to keep you any longer. Thank you so much for your
yep,
time. And looking forward to catching up again as you go into 2026, buy some more businesses, maybe sell some and to hear about how it's going, because I want to be very clear here. None of these comments are being disparaging to owners. As I tell owners all the time, I'm not a roofer, I'm not a plumber, I don't do log cabins, I don't know how to do any of that stuff. Don't call me about how to put a nail in a wall. Like, that's not it. I don't
yeah,
expect you to understand what we're talking about. I'm saying you need to learn this. Just like if I was going to buy a roofing company or log cabin business, I would have to learn this stuff. When you get into this world, you just got to learn this, and that's all that's being talked about here. And it's just being talked about in the way that we see it over and over and over again. And
yeah,
guess what? The buyers, they're trying to figure out how to buy your company for the best deal possible. And for them, that's going to mean, obviously, work on the valuation, because they're trying to be shrewd, right? But understanding that the stronger position you can have, the better buyer that you can attract for what you're looking for. So anyway, so it's none of this is disparaging. I love talking about this.
right.
I'm so excited to hear about your journey, and it was nice to connect with you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, we want people to flourish. We want sellers and
Yeah.
buyers to flourish, and so ultimately, sellers and buyers, in order for them to flourish, a lot of times that has to do with expectations versus reality. And so we just want to help buyers and sellers to really understand the market, because most people have not sold a business, most people have not bought a business. And so even though we do that on a regular basis, they haven't. And so we just want you to see and understand from a buyer's perspective what your business, the challenges, how the lens through which they see the business.
Yep.
And so that's why they are going to offer what they offer, or try to structure it the way they want to structure it, and so just setting the stage for those expectations. But anyways, yeah, I really have enjoyed talking with you, man. I feel like we could talk for hours.
Oh yeah. We got to do it again, because this is great. We
Yeah,
go for hours.
yeah, yeah.
And,
So, but thanks for
on
having
that,
me on. Thanks.
yes, It's been great, and I would just say, if you watch sports, you want to understand how to run a great offense. You have to understand how the defense is going to attack you. You just have to. Otherwise, you can draw a
Yeah,
play up, go, this is going to be great. But unless you understand
right.
how the defense is going to attack you, and in selling your business, how's the buyer going to value your company? How are they going to look at it? So the better you understand that psychology and how to position it is so important here. So thank you so much for your time, and looking forward to connecting
Yeah,
again soon.
yeah. All right. Thanks, man. Have a good one.